sound better.
Okay, so if you have a look on a kick drum, you can clearly see that it has several parts. So this part is the lower part, or as I call it, the tummy, and it is the main part of the kick. Now, if you want to create a nice kick drum, you definitely need a sine wave or sort of sine wave that starts on a very high frequency, like something like this, and drops down on a very low frequency in an instant, so like in a few milliseconds really. And this will give the kick basically to that sine wave. And that is very, very important. And even a very small change on the pitch envelope can create a very different sound for the kick drum. You will see. Now, the second part is what you can clearly hear here is a noise that can add some nice organic feel to your kick drum. You can use anything, but you will see what we can do in Serum. I think our chances are very limited if we want to use Serum for that, but we can solve that. And here is the third part that we need, is a transient. Now for the transient, you can even use a pitch envelope to create a very high, tiny percussion kind of sound, or you can use a sample or percussion sample, or anything really that has that nice clicky sound. Let me just delete that. So this is how it sounds. So let's try to do this in Serum. First, I want to choose the lower part, and for that I want to use an analog BD sine. So this is a sine wave basically, but it's some slight overtones to it as it morphs back and forth. And for the pitch envelope I want to use an LFO, and the reason behind that is it can have several breakpoints. So it's very flexible, and we need that if we want to create nice sounding kick drums. So for the transient, or for the heavier part of the kick drum, I want to use this very short shape, and when I go down I want to have a lower frequency kind of place where we create the subby part. And if you want to fine-tune your kick drum, you definitely need to play around with the MIDI, and I set it to G0, so our kick drum will sound and will be tuned to G0. And that is important in some genres. So let's drop LFO1 on oscillator A coarse pitch. And let's go to metrics and change the type to unipolar. This is important because if you choose bipolar, the pitch will drop down way below G0, and we don't want that obviously. So right now, this is how our kick drum sounds. So our next job is to tweak this envelope. So I'm speeding up the LFO to make some more room to it, like something like this. If you play around with the coarse pitch, you can achieve different results. So I just like to keep it at around 25. Okay, so this is the fundamentals of our kick drum. We will tweak it further to sound a little better. But first, let's choose a transient. And luckily, in Serum Factory Bank, we have some kick attacks, or in other words, transient sounds. Now this is not the best thing here, so let's choose one-shot mode, and this will just give one tiny touch to our kick drum. This second one is nice. If you want, you can browse through all the kick attacks, but I found that the second one is the best. Maybe this is cool too, so 15 can sound good too. Okay, so we set the level to it. And to make it a little harder, let's choose a filter, but obviously we don't want to filter our sound, and add some drive to it. This will create a little more overtones to the kick that will make an illusion that it sounds a little harder. Now you can easily overdrive your kick. So what you want to do is click on this mix knob and pull back the level instead of playing with the master all the time when you tweak the drive. But first, click on the noise, so the noise oscillator will go through the filter and we can add the drive to the noise, so the attack too and the transient too, not only the tummy part of the kick. Okay, this is cool. Let's add the noise oscillator. Now our job is not the easiest because we used up the noise oscillator. So what we can do is use oscillator B with a wavetable that has lots of overtones. For example, the Monster 4, as you can see, it has lots of overtones. And use FM from A to turn the sound into like noise. And obviously we just want to have a short amount of noise to it. But I still want to make it a little longer, so let's tweak the curve here in the metrics tab. Okay, now let's add some effects. First, let's choose a distortion. And what I want to do is just distort the transient part, so like this section of the kick, because if you distort this section very heavily, you will get a very weird result. So for that, I want to choose envelope 2 and go down to about 130 milliseconds and drop it onto the drive. And pull back the mix, so you mix the heavy transient with the nice and soft low end. Okay, let's add an equalizer because we have too much middle frequencies and middle bass frequencies. At around, I don't know, like 500 Hz, we will see. Now I hear another problem, that every time we trigger this kick drum it sounds a little different. And for that we need to pull back the random here and here too. And what it does is it stops moving this phase knob like all the time back and forth. So when we trigger our kick drum it will always start from this position that you set here in the phase, okay? It doesn't matter where it is now, like let's set it to the front. And here too. And now our kick drum will always be static. Okay, so I added a little more low end and I switched back to attack 2 because I find it a little better and a little punchier. So this is how you make a kick drum in Serum. And of course you can tweak it further by tweaking this envelope or adding a different noise, a different transient to it. And there are hundreds of ways to do this in Serum and in other synths too, but basically these are the fundamentals to create your own kick drum. In the next video we are going to make a nice snare.